One Planet Peace Forum, and this panel that was being assembled for justice, healing, peace, and unity, and with some extraordinary change makers that have come forward under the call of Bob Atkinson and the One Planet Peace Forum, bringing together Dr. Marty Casey, Antoinette's Roots daughter, and Dr. Kurt Johnson to have this conversation together, this critical conversation about what's the intersection between justice and healing and peace and unity. This is really the heart of everything we're doing in World Unity Week. Antoinette, Marty, Kurt, Bob, it's so wonderful to have you with us in World Unity Week. So I'm going to start. Thank you, Marty. And I'm going to start, Bob, by throwing to you to give a brief introduction to today's session. And thank you for bringing it. And Bob Atkinson, Dr. Bob Atkinson, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ben. It's really a pleasure to be part of World Unity Week with you. And it's my pleasure to, on behalf of One Planet Peace Forum and Evolutionary leaders, to welcome you to this special World Unity Week Peace Chat Plenary on justice, healing, unity, and peace. We're going to spend this hour going deep into the dynamics of individual and collective healing from the generations of trauma that have afflicted so many families in so many ways. And we'll come to appreciate how and why these collective traumas literally make us all one human family. One Planet Peace Forum was founded to create solutions to the most challenging issues facing humanity through collective action addressing these needs. Our Peace Chat series, which this is the second of, contributes to this goal by sowing seeds for peace building that can be planted in one's own garden. One Planet Peace Forum begins with a holistic vision and understands peace as both an inner and outer process designed to fulfill an age-old promise of the world's sacred traditions that is evolutionary in nature. The title we've chosen for this session, Justice, Healing, Unity, and Peace, is more than what we'll be talking about. It also represents an individual and collective pattern of transformation, which has built-in steps, each one moving us closer to peace on earth. We see this over the past century in the context of the peace movement, nuclear disarmament, civil rights, universal human rights, the climate movement, and all the social and restorative justice movements, all of which are necessary stepping stones to world peace. Across many centuries of the evolution of consciousness, we are coming to understand that peace on earth has its preconditions, some of which are when the human family lives as one in unity, when we independently discover truth for ourselves, not follow blindly, when justice is unitive, not punitive, when we have equality between women and men, when we have balance between wealth and poverty, when we have harmony between science and spirituality, when we are free from all forms of prejudice, racial, ethnic, religious, class, economic, political, and national, when education is universal and freely accessible, when nature is protected as a sacred trust. These unifying principles are so tied together that the realization of one depends upon the realization of all the others. Living these principles enables a unity of purpose to become paramount. Our second virtual One Planet Peace Forum is coming up on September 24th, 26th. Please save these dates and take a look at our website, oneplanetpeaceforum.org, for details and to register. This Peace Chat features 3 thought leaders and social justice activists who will share personal experiences and perspectives that help illuminate what is going on in the world that requires unified action to heal the wounds of generations and build a shared future of peaceful relationships. First will be Dr. Marty Casey, activist, actor, author, mentor, motivational speaker, founder of Ungun Institute, co-creator of Black Sunday, and founder of Show Me Arts Foundation. She will be followed by Antoinette Hall, world-renowned reggae keyboardist, social change activist, and co-founder of Stand Up for Justice, and Dr. Kurt Johnson, leading authority on the interrelationship of evolution, science, and religion, and award-winning author of The Inner Spiritual Age. Dr. Marty?
Thank you so much, Bob. What an honor and a pleasure to have you introduce us today. Wow, if we could just right now, just take a deep breath together. Can we do that collectively right now before we begin? Just inhale and exhale. In honor of the Peace School in Chicago, Master Kim and Jennifer Kim, inhale peace. Exhale peace. Inhale world and exhale peace. I don't know about you, but I needed to do that first. My name is Dr. Marty Casey, and I am the owner and founder of Ungun Institute, LLC. And I am here today with even some of my teams. I want to thank them for being here in this space. Collective trauma is real. We have discovered in recent years, the more humanity suffers, so does our planet. It's time for us all to heal from our collective traumatic experiences as soon as possible. In order to live peacefully and harmoniously together, it is necessary. Two main things to remember about trauma is that we all at some point will experience it. And it is never the same for any of us because it's your own personal experience. You own your feelings. Simple as that. However, because of that, only you can do the work for you. Recovering from trauma takes time, and everyone heals at their own pace. Ungun can help anyone who is ready to release their pain and their hurt and begin the healing process. Ungun is a safe and unique experience that uses art to help ease you into doing the work for yourself. Art is a universal language that can speak for you emotionally when words are hard to find. Although Ungun cannot guarantee the results will be the same for everyone, we can guarantee to educate you and to offer a collective view of what you are experiencing collectively. And that's a powerful healing experience within itself. It can also provide you with the necessary tools to help you bounce back from the trauma bullets. That's right. Trauma bullets is what I call those events that have hit you hard without notice, without warning. And no matter if the trauma goes all the way back to your childhood, or maybe even a car accident from yesterday, Ungun can help you release that hurt and pain attached to those events. One of the growing extreme traumas that Ungun specializes in is the traumatic event of gun violence. We have seen an overwhelming rise of gun violence across our nation. Ungun has assisted families on both sides of the violent act for their recovery. The positive results have been documented and proven. Our tools and techniques using art not only helps to heal the family that was directly affected by the loss of their loved one, but it also helps to save the other family involved from being targeted by an act of retaliation, which keeps that one trauma active in the community. Because trauma is transferable. This is why we must help as many families possible to disarm now. I began this work because of my own personal childhood trauma that also included gun violence. Over 25 years ago, a close family member that I love shot and killed another man who lived only 2 blocks from our family home. The man verbally threatened to kill everyone in our house. This threat was taken to heart, instantly and emotionally triggering my family member. This caused him to react without breathing. His reaction led to an unexpected act of violence that left our family distraught, as well as becoming a possible target for more violence in our own community that was already suffering from many other active traumas. It was then that I began to study and pay attention to the necessary steps that it takes to heal, not just myself and my family, but also for all the families of the community. Still today, I give back by volunteering to serve the youth in my old neighborhood through my nonprofit, Show Me Arts Academy. I founded the organization after the unrest of Ferguson. I'm proud to say that we have serviced over 3,000 children to date, including children that are incarcerated in the St. Louis Juvenile Detention Center. Through my program on gun, I invited my family member after his release from prison to come back to speak to the children that were locked up. His presence and real life experiences he shared was powerful and impactful to the children, who were also traveling down the same or a very similar path. He could speak to what only others could speak about. And there is a difference. Because he had this same traumatic experience, it made all the difference in the world to those children behind bars. This is what I call collective emotional sharing. The family member that killed someone that day was my brother, my only sibling. I knew that part of his healing process was allowing him to give back to his community, was a way for him to completely heal, just by allowing him to be of service. Trauma is transferable, but also is healing. There are 4 simple steps that we can all take. 1, give. 2, forgive. 3, heal. 4, live. You must take those steps in that order, and you cannot skip a step. I'm proud to say Ungun has made strides even in my own family. My brother's daughter, who was only 1 year old when he committed his act of violence, will be graduating next year from Mizzou University as a trauma emergency room doctor, and has already agreed to become an advisor for Ungun Institute. She is in the room with us today. Ungun is more than a modality, it's a movement. Violence is on the rise, and myself, along with a team of professionals and advisors from around the country, are ready and equipped to assist you in your communities in disarming trauma. We would love an opportunity to team up with the Biden administration to help heal our nation, because we understand more than ever, hurt people hurt people. Healed people heal people. It's time to remove the stigmas and the shame of being hurt. We can't change what happened. We can only change how we feel about it. I have one question for you today, audience. Are you ready to heal and ungun? Thank you. My name is Dr. Marty Casey, and it is an honor and a pleasure to be an ambassador for World Unity Week of 2021.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marty. Antoinette?
Greetings. My name is Antoinette Hall. I'm one of the co-founders of Stand Up for Justice. It's been quite a journey from last year. Basically, when the protests had started last year, and I really love what you said, Dr. Marty, because the trauma that everybody is feeling is it's all around. It's really hard not to be emotionally invested in this. It's how people respond and react to when we actually see injustice. When the protests were happening in our city, it was not something that I particularly wanted to participate in. There was a lot of other people that did want to. They wanted their voices heard. They wanted to be seen. They wanted people to be able to take notice from the pain that they were going through. And it wasn't like that we weren't feeling the pain. We were feeling the pain as well too, but it just wasn't necessarily my version of how I wanted to do things. But at the time, my husband and I, we actually went down to the protest because we wanted to ensure the city where we lived in, even though there was fires and riots happening around in all the circling and surrounding cities around us, that wasn't going to happen where we lived. So when we came down there, it turned out that the organizers weren't even present. And after Dr. Clinton Strong and I were actually speaking, they asked us to actually lead the protest. And it was very funny with Pato leading the protest, because as he's going down there, no justice, no peace, we got to the first corner. He's like, all right, everybody head back now. I'm like, I don't think that's how a protest works. I think we have to keep on marching down the street. We have to keep on speaking. We have to keep on doing what we need to do so that way people can hear us and let the city know that we're not here to create any damage, but we just wanted to be heard as far as like what we're feeling and the pain that we're actually feeling. By the time the second protest was coming around, the police actually contacted us and asked us to lead the next protest, because they felt that since there was going to be minors involved and they wanted some adult leadership to make sure that it was going to ensure the safety of the children. That was really amazing too, because we had the mayor, we had the city, we had the police department, all ensuring that nobody was going to threaten us or hurt us, because there were threats of violence, for us coming out. And that was something that was a big concern, because we know that anytime that we host any type of events, it's always going to be a family-friendly, fun event. From there, even though for evolutionary leaders and with Unity Earth and World Unity Week, we participate with a lot of interfaith organizations. So being able to participate for everything regarding the environment, the indigenous peoples, the refugees, the climate change, and different things, it started to make me realize and understand what else are we doing for our own people as well too, because at this point, it didn't seem like it was really on the map of all the things that were being discussed all around the world. And now all of a sudden it became the forefront. This whole past year has been a real focal point on racial and social justice. And that also decided that I was like, it's time for me to just really get involved, really get hands-on and get my hands dirty. And the same thing like with Pato, what happened with him many years ago when he was assaulted by the police and forced to spend time in prison for a crime he did not commit. But that didn't make him bitter, and it didn't make him resentful. Of course, I would be resentful, I would be hating everybody, but because of the type of person he is. And when the gun violence and crime was starting to rise in his city by a personal incident, he decided that he was going to leave his career behind and to work with the local police department in order to reduce gun crime within the city. 6 years he took off when he was riding high with Sting, but it was like, this was more important. This is what I can do. Even though I can preach peace and justice and unity all around the world, we also have to do this locally. So getting involved locally made me think about, because COVID was a time that all of a sudden we weren't touring all over around the world anymore. But these are issues that also face us here at home. And that's why I decided to start the organization, to start the Jane campaign, to start to address the systems of inequality and inequity regarding from economics to justice, to housing, to education. It's a very long road. It's not something that could actually be accomplished within a couple days, a couple weeks, a couple months, or even a few years. This could be a lifelong process, as we're sitting there watching what's happening around the country right now. We've been given the Juneteenth holiday, but also at the same time, we're not given the right to be able to teach the history about Juneteenth. and this is something that I think that we should address. Everybody should become involved. This isn't just a Black history issue. This is an American history issue. If we are depriving ourselves of learning the true history about America, then we're also denying other things that have happened, as far as what happened with our Native Indigenous brothers here in America. We're also not learning about the Chinese immigrants. We're not learning about the other immigrants that have come about, if we're only singling out and only wanting to portray one type of history. So our work it's long and it's worth it. And even though sometimes people get caught up in the moment and no justice, no peace, and I'm here to research on their own, there's people who are getting involved politically and starting to understand what their candidates are about. Does a candidate support the teaching of diversity and inclusion? Does this candidate support critical race theory training? Does the candidate support what are the school standards set up in each school? What about what's happening with our health and economics as far as the hospitals? What the Black nurses and the Black doctors are saying. Why is our health so low and so prevalent in society? And it's the same thing with economics as they start to talk about reparations. What types of forms? What are the steps that are we moving forward? Because I think with justice, we do receive peace. And we can't achieve any peace without the justice, but we don't also, everybody has their own way of going about to doing things. As far as us as being spiritual leaders, we will always try to take the spiritual approach, because it's like, what is God's will and intention as far as us to be able to move forward and to be able to heal, to be able to hold hands with one another instead of dividing us apart, because this does not have to be a divided issue. It is not a political issue. This is a moral issue, a humanitarian issue that everybody should, I'm hoping and praying that we're all going to look at and sit there and say, something, I'm not going to take these things that's being said personally. I want to embrace them so that way we can sit there and move forward and do better as we try to move forward into light and life, into the future. So the Jane campaign, as you see behind me, is about my friend Jane, who has a young son. He's autistic, he's young, he's big, and he's Black. When she first moved here, he was only up to my knees. Now he's bigger than me. He's very strong, and he does not respond to verbal commands. One of the hurtful things, it was maybe a few years ago, there was a gentleman who was special needs, and he was in Costco at the food sample line, and he was shot by an off-duty officer over, I guess they were fighting over food. But when the officer got knocked out, he also opened fire and shot the two parents as well. He killed the man and he put the two parents in the hospital for months. They saw no wrongdoing. When I asked our local police, they said, well, this happened in our county, but the officer was from another county. I was like, what are your standards? How do you guys approach special needs? What do you guys do? This is what got the conversation going on with the police. So I don't believe that ACAB, I don't believe that all cops are bad or dirty or anything, but we would like to know. And they were very helpful, at least in having the conversation. They said, something, we don't want to see any more deaths than you do, so let's move forward. What exactly is your training? We would like to become involved. What are the steps that if you see other police departments are actually doing, how can we start to incorporate these same policies within our own city, within our own county, even within our own state? But because I'm still very new at this, when you start to deal with politicians and political organizations, it can be a very long and tedious process. But also at the same time, I'm learning to sit there and let my voice be heard, let the voice be heard for her and for all the others, so that way she doesn't become a status later, the after the fact. So the Jane campaign is really to sit there and prevent any type of fatalities, any type of unwarranted arrests, any type of discrepancies when we're dealing between special needs, mental health, and the police as well too. Thank you. I'm Antoinette.
Thank you so much, Antoinette. Kurt?
Yeah, so the first thing I want to say is just a couple things about background. So when I talk about peace, I'm talking from experiences of a couple books that I have contributed to on peace studies. where my co-author was Philip Helmich, who's director of peace at Shift Network. And his hands-on experience was in the Sierra Leone Civil War in Africa, and my hands-on experience had been in the Ghana Civil War in Africa in 79, 80. And so when I speak about peace, I'm going to be coming from those experiences and also what I learned about peace studies. Now, when I talk about diversity, my background there goes back to when I was with the Order of the Holy Cross, when I was still in the cloth. I was stationed at their house in Harlem, and that allowed me to do my work at the Museum of Natural History. But my social activism work at that time was creating block grants during the so-called war on poverty for minority churches, Latino and Black churches, who I think, as you know, they're organized under what's called Article 10 of the New York State Religious Corporations Law. And so there's not just one phone number that you call, like you would for the Episcopal Church or the Roman Catholic Church. You're talking about these other churches, they are all organized, block by block, literally, corner by corner, and you have hundreds of people to call. So the wonderful thing about that experience was that my co-workers, relative to who we worked with in the community, all ended up becoming famous. Of course, one of them was C.T. Vivian, who was famous already for his work with Dr. Martin Luther King, and who, as you know, just passed away last year. And then James D. Otis Roberts, who was head of the Atlanta Theological Union, and Joseph R. Washington Jr., who's head of Black theology at Penn. And so that was the team that we were working with in the sense of all of these block grant things. And then we organized the first conference on church social action, which was held at Fordham University Lincoln Center. So, I mean, what a privilege to have gotten to know CT and Diotis and Joseph in a way that was really intimate about their connection to everything that's being talked about here. So the two comments I wanted to make are, the first is regarding peace studies. And that is that most people think that when you talk about peace, you're talking about absence of war and what it takes to get people not to fight each other or to be in some state of, getting along instead of being in some sense of conflict. Whereas all of the speakers said, and I'm sure Dot and others would say, that's not actually the definition of peace. The definition of peace is actually when all of the needs for human well-being are being met, and both Antoinette and Marty went through a list of them, when those basic needs are being met, so there is an atmosphere of harmony and of the satisfaction of basic needs, then you don't have a system of not having peace, because it's that organic. And of course, what that means is that the solutions are also that organic. So it's so interesting that Antoinette was talking about the moniker "No Justice, No Peace," because people who don't know what that really means, they very often think that that's a threat, that it's saying, like, if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to do something nasty to you. No justice, no peace. Or actually what it is, it's a statement about just the self-evident truth that once these needs are met of justice and harmony and well-being and basic needs, then there's the chemistry for peace itself, and it's that basic. So a second thing that I wanted to say then is that every one of us who ended up working during that time I mentioned in the 70s and 80s, I went through the list in my head, we all married into intercultural, interracial families. So I was no exception, and my family, I was doing the math, it's 3 continents, 4 colors, 6 countries, and 5 languages in my immediate family. And what's odd about it in this time is that it's so second nature to us to, in a sense, not even think about that tally. And what you learn from that is that obviously the problems that we have, with race and every kind of that type of conflict is worldview, experience, and what has been drummed into people's, how they've been trained by their experience. I mean, anybody who's lived in a multicultural family knows that none of these issues come up. It's just amazing. People are people. And you can look at it from DNA. The side chains that decide race are the same little side chains that determine whether a bird is blue or a bird is red or a bird is orange. And yet it's become such a big deal historically for such sad reasons in our species. So those are the things that I just wanted to say. It's close to my heart because of my own experience with my intimate family, and my daughter's quite an activist in the Latino community. But I will say, just I was actually called on the carpet recently in teaching because, and I had a realization there because I was teaching developmental history and someone called to my attention that it really is a white narrative. And it's interesting, it is the academic narrative, but that person was absolutely right. It's actually the European version of the story. And, you know, thank God that we're in this multifaceted transition now where we're getting away from these, you know, just these one-way streets of how reality is looked at and getting down to, you know, where the world has to go to be, you know, one planet, one heart, you know, go through the list. So I just welcome this conversation for all of those reasons.
Thank you so much, Kurt. Wow. Such powerful personal stories. There's such importance here in this conversation, and I think we can maybe go even deeper. And I want to come back to Dr. Marty, who started us off, and ask a kind of a follow-up question that will carry us into the next 15, 20 minutes that we have for an open conversation to keep this really rich and important conversation flowing. I had the, it's hard to even find a word for it, but an experience a week or two ago near my hometown in Maine, where Dr. Marty was leading a ungun workshop on healing trauma. And I would just like her to tell us a little bit about what the takeaway from that weekend was for her and everyone else.
Wow, thank you, Bob. And it definitely was a moment in time that I will personally never forget. And I think everyone who was there, Dot Maver was there, and Bob and Peter Blaze was also there that weekend, along with my team. So we were there in Bath, Maine to do training for our ungun facilitators. And I just want to share with you that you never know the moment or the time when trauma is going to hit. And even though we have learned the tools and the techniques to prepare for that, but in that moment when trauma hits, it feels like, and I'm sure you all have experienced your own, it feels like you've just been hit by a bus and you can't feel your limbs. You know the impact of something just happened, but you can't think. And emotionally, you're stuck. And you're trying to scream, but no words will even come out. We witnessed trauma in real time, right in the middle of our training. We had just finished Saturday night and had a beautiful dinner. And one of our team members received a call and she stepped away. When she came back into the room, you could see the trauma, her body. Help, help, I need help. I gotta get home. Just like that, trauma jumped in the room. Not only was she experiencing in real time what she was feeling, it froze us. Oh, what's wrong? What? Just like that. After we were able to get her to breathe, to give us a little bit more information, she stated her husband just called and said she has to get home on the next flight right away. And he would not share what it was all about. I called her husband. I said, in order for us to even treat her and help her right now, I'm begging you to tell me what's going on. And you don't want her to know, that's fine, but we just want to be able to aid her appropriately. So he shared with me in confidence that their son had just been shot and murdered. He was left in the streets. My team and I sprung into action, and we began to do everything that we needed to assist her. We did not have to call an ambulance. We were able to help her get to a place of calm, get her packed, and on the next flight within hours, and another team member assisted in flying back with her and was able to release her to her husband and her family. When you know what to do, because you'll never know when you need to do it, but when you know what to do, it can be life-changing. Because within hours of her receiving the most horrific news any mother, any person could ever receive, she called back and said, Dr. Marty, may I please talk to you and the team on FaceTime? And she stated, whatever you all do, don't stop this work. It's important. Because without the training of Ungun and what I just experienced in the collective of connecting with all of you in love and spirit, I don't know if I would be able to stand here right now to talk to you in my right mind. Ungun will assist all of us in a moment in time that we don't even know is going to happen. I told you, I live with childhood trauma all through my teenage years, all through my young adult life, until I figured out what to do. I went from a troubled child, those same children you read about burning up the gas station after Ferguson happened, and some of us probably was like, why are they messing up their own community? Because they were voiceless. I became an activist to speak for those who cannot speak. And I use my platform to do so. But I identified with those children because I knew I would have been one of them. Instead of judging, I moved myself in a position to help. I went from a troubled child to a global peace ambassador. And that can only happen if you decide to show up in love. We must show more empathy and love and compassion for one another, even when we're different, even when we don't understand, even if we don't like them, even if we don't know them. We must show up in love. Thank you, Bob.
Well, we're all obviously trying to take that in and embrace you as well in the process of our understanding of what you just said and what you are offering to the American community that clearly needs healing from many generations of trauma, as you have told us was in your own family. I would like to be able to let this conversation flow where it most needs to go to add to what has been said. We have maybe another 8 or 9 minutes before we do need to offer our closing remarks. So who would like to follow with a thought?
Antoinette's got her hand up, and just as we throw to Antoinette, Bob and Marty and Kurt and Antoinette and everyone, just a quick comment. This is amazing. This is incredible. The depth and the richness of what's being shared. And sometimes the challenge is, we end up prioritizing slightly different things in our work, in our mission. And you see, obviously, Marty's, of course, really it's healing. It's healing. Now, it doesn't mean that peace and justice aren't also part of it, but it's healing is where the focus is. And for Antoinette, in this part of the journey, it's justice. And it doesn't mean that unity and healing and peace aren't very much a part of what Antoinette is doing and what Pato is doing, but it's justice is the tip of the spear. And so how do we as a collective hold all of it together so that healing and justice and peace aren't in any kind of disarray with each other, aren't pulling in different directions, but are moving together as one united body? And I think that's what's so powerful about this conversation is while Antoinette and Marty and Kurt may be having different points of focus, that the conversation, Bob, is happening in an interconnected whole. And I just feel that's super important, not just for now, but as we go forward as a movement of movements. Because in the past, I think we've argued and said, no, your priority is wrong. You should be doing what I'm doing. It's like, no, what my priority is right. Your priority is wrong. And here's why. Let me tell you why. But I think this conversation is so important because it's holding the whole of healing and justice and peace in unity. And that feels incredibly important. So thank you. Just wanted to make that comment before throwing to you, Antoinette, my beloved sister.
Thank you, Ben. I love everything that's being said and for bringing that back up again, because I put in the chat there to Kurt. Thank you for mentioning no justice, no peace. And the way that we spell it again, no justice, K-N-O-W. When you know justice, then you will know peace. And I think that it's really amazing because sometimes people, they want to know the peace and they want to get to the kumbaya part. But in order for us to get to the kumbaya part, you have to know what it is that we're working towards to get to the kumbaya. We're not already there. We're not existing as one people if we're still not being treated equally as one people. And as Dr. Marty was saying, love, that's my favorite quote from the UB. This has become my mission in life. Devote your life to proving that love is the greatest thing in the world. So no matter all the obstacles that we're actually facing, how are we not actually falling down and succumbing to depression and anger? As MLK said, riot is the language of the unheard. While people were focusing on the riot, they were not focusing on the messages that were being spoken. They kept focusing on the building and the material objects, but they never put any focus on the human lives that were actually being lost. And it's like, let's get back to that message. And like you said, how we prioritize things. It's like while all these things are happening and what's going on, they've lost sight of the actual message that people are dying. People losing their lives, innocent men, women, and children, whether it's through violence or it could be through systematic violence, of, like I said, of education, of housing, in jobs. That is also a very slow death that's actually happening within these minority communities. So it's like we can be honest and we can be truthful. We can also share love at the same time, but we got to be able to sit there and say, something, I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to hear, I'm willing to take the next steps that's going forward. So that way we actually know what justice is, and then we can actually know peace that's actually within our own heart. And thank you for mentioning the music, because we did complete Stand Up for Justice album. You can't just write one song for Stand Up for Justice. There's going to be many, many, many songs that we're actually going through. Some of them were dedicated to Martin Luther King. Some were dedicated to the protests. Some were dedicated to just justice on a spiritual level and how it works in modern day times. So this collaboration music was actually a very healing thing for me. And when you saw Nene and them, every time those girls come over to my house, as we're sitting there raging mad and just ranting and venting and crying with each other. What gives us peace is to actually be able to write music, you know, and to be able to share music, to be able to feel the pain, but also the beauty and the joy within the music. Music can be so unifying and bringing people together in so many ways. So music is my sense of healing. I think it's also a sense of healing for other people as well too. And that's why the more music that we actually bring together, then it's going to bring us closer together. And that's going to kick off our Good News Tour as we head up the West Coast, 26 cities from San Diego all the way to Port Angeles. If we get this next gig in Bellingham, Washington, all the way back down to San Diego. And we'll be talking about social justice. We'll be talking about brothers and sisters. We're going to be talking about we're all God's children, brothers and sisters. We're going to find a way to sit there and unite the people as best as we possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you, Antoinette. Music is definitely a way to healing. We have a hand up. Voices of Water, would you like to add to the conversation? If you can unmute. Can you unmute yourself?
They may have it where she can't unmute herself. Who's running the room? Our tech.
Well, I'm not sure if we can.
Maybe if she can put her question in the chat.
Try again now. Sorry about that. Try again now.
Yeah, got it.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm speaking from Northern California in the South Yuba River watershed, traditional lands of the Nisinan people. You asked the question, how do we unify these movements? And it's actually, and we're finding it here. It's already represented in this World Unity Week, well represented. And I honor you for that. And it's aligning with the source of life itself. It's a simple magic key that if we can align with water and become more water in ourselves and remember that we are water and that there's only one water on earth, this is our unity. The covalent hydrogen-oxygen bond connects all life. Without liquid water, we would be Mars. And it takes going deeper and deeper and deeper. And we think we've gotten to this level of go, oh, I get this. And then we're invited to go deeper. And with every conflict, we're invited to go even deeper into that understanding and to know that really what is ailing, the dysfunction that is ailing our species on the planet is a delusion of separation. And when we truly sink into the cells of our body and feel ourselves as water and are able to become in this water unity consciousness, we honor and respect all diversity because we know that's the magic dance of water, the song lines of that force of nature, that source of life begins to create us in new ways, because that's what water does. When we're aligned with the source of life, we allow the source of life to align with us, and that communication and that communion becomes real in our bodies, and our cells start waking up, and we begin feeling and sensing the language of ourselves as water. And all of the water blessings that are being done here, this is contributing to our alignment. And so I don't know that we really need to ask the question so much anymore, because we're doing it. Here in this room, we're doing it. And as we model this behavior, we are becoming the first molecules of the tidal wave of the heart of humanity. And we're becoming the pacer cells that begin to model this heart of humanity. And there's magic in that. And it's actually really, really simple, that when we just keep dropping in deeper, deeper into our bodies, deeper into our unity, then it changes everything. And it's, in dealing with trauma, we had this hit of trauma. As we were in this deep conversation and deep healing about water, it came to us that yesterday and today, the indigenous of Brazil were in a peaceful protest. And some of you may have seen this in the news and maybe not, because it's not being shared very widely. And it got violent. And these peaceful, innocent guardians of the forest were standing for all of our existence. They know they're the guardians of the heart of humanity with the rainforest, the band of tropical rainforests around the planet. And they know we're at a tipping point. And unless we come into this unity,
we'll just have to move forward a little bit because there
Yeah.
are times have a bit of a time
Yeah.
constraint. I'd like to
so
close this
basically
session.
it's asking us to go deeper and to not turn away and to keep holding this truth of our unity and keep living it deeper and deeper and deeper. So thank you for this opportunity to be in this room today. I appreciate it. I love you all for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
bringing in that stepping stone to peace, the waters. So it's time now for our closing remarks. And if you could each take 1 minute to close with a thought you'd like to leave with everyone, starting with Kurt and Antoinette and Marty.
Yeah, I was just asking myself, where does this really hit home for me? And I'll give you 3 examples. I recently, it was before COVID, but I needed to run an errand in a neighborhood that to me is second nature. And yet I was with somebody who was so afraid to go into that neighborhood, I had to make another plan. And my ex and I, who are very, very close, she's retiring now and has to figure out where to live. And she said to me, I have to figure out a place where when they find out I'm not white, I'll still be safe. And a friend of mine who's Asian, has an Asian wife and an Asian toddler, making $15,000 a month now with Google, but also he's making a move and also having to do all the demographic research. Where can I be safe as an Asian with an Asian wife and an Asian toddler? So these things are super real. And let's hope we're on the trajectory to taking that toxic environment away.
Thank you, Kurt. Antoinette?
Yes, I would like to say, since this is a prayerful group, and we always talk about prayer and worship, so I would like to say what Frederick Douglass said: we pray with our feet. You know, I've seen people who said they pray that the gun violence will stop. They pray for the rainforest. They pray for these things. But I say, like Frederick Douglass, we pray with our feet. Our actions will stop the gun violence. Our actions will stop the violence anywhere that there is violence. When we sit there and when we repeat good against evil, when we fight with good against evil. But praying alone and wishing it to all be better is not going to be enough. You're going to have to get out of your comfort zone. You're going to have to get busy, whether it's internally, but once you get it internally, then you got to take it externally and give it to somebody else. If you have been blessed with peace in your heart, then go and extend that someone else has peace within their life as well too, on any type of level. Whatever you want to do to make the world a better place, pray and then go and get busy with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Antoinette. And closing thoughts, Dr. Marty.
Thank you again, Bob. The 4 points I would like to remind you of that I read in my story earlier was to give, forgive, heal, and then live. You cannot live your best life before you give, because when we take the time out to give to others first, we can then open it up to receive. And in receiving, you move to that place of forgiveness, being able to forgive yourself, give yourself some grace, being able to forgive others. You can't change what happened, but you can change how you feel about it. In that place of forgiveness is where you will find that freedom and that release. And then you have reached a place of healing and able to live your best life. Please, I'm asking you to start with self. You must start and do the inner work first. That's where it all began for me. I could not show up today and say or do anything in a positive way if I didn't start with myself. If you have experienced any type of hurt and pain that you are still struggling with, it could be something you don't even know about. Please contact unguninstitute.com. We are doing workshops on Zoom, and you can be right where you are. We'll come to you in this Zoom room, and we'll help you live your best life. Ungun that hurt and pain. So thank you again for allowing us to have this moment. It has been an honor and a pleasure, and I'm wishing everyone to live their best life on purpose.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marty, Antoinette, and Kurt. And thank you all for being part of this moving and much needed peace chat. Plant these peace building seeds in the garden of your heart.